Well, it's that time again. It's Sunday, and I'm talking with Rolan and Dan, and that means it's another episode of Oh So Curious. A lot of stuff happened this week, and we're probably going to talk about it. So, while we're here, let's just say be sure to subscribe to everything YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, Spotify, podcasts, anywhere you get a podcast. Join us, be a part of the conversation, comment, engage. We'll talk back. We may even feature you on the show if you do. But why don't we just get right into it, and you people tell me how you're doing. Roland, let's start with you. What's going on?
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Rolan. Hi. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm fine. Things are good. How are you? More
Yes.
importantly. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, me too.
Dan?
Dan, how are you doing?
Oh,
Silent.
sorry, muted.
Guy doesn't even
Um,
have his audio on. Wow.
He's a mess. He's an
I'm a
absolute
total
mess today.
Total mess today.
Total wreck. Get some sleep, man. You know, have
I
some
got a little
respect
bit
for the
last night,
show.
so
A little.
Yeah. Dan was like, I got 20 minutes. You know, I was watching
Yeah.
She-Hulk and I fell asleep. That's
totally
that
reasonable.
counts.
Reasonable
Totally
amount.
acceptable. Yeah, it's a
That's
good
all you
thing to
need.
fall asleep to. Is there anything other than that?
Other than what?
Something to fall asleep to? Did you watch?
Oh,
the last
I just
episode?
I love listening to ASMR these days. I really got into it. It's like,
Really?
I wouldn't admit it to many people, but I guess I'm willing to admit it on here for some reason. So, yeah,
Sometimes, well,
just-
yeah, you can be more honest with anonymous viewers, I guess.
yeah. I'm like, what are you gonna do? Like, go tell somebody I know? Anyway. Yeah. No, I pop it on, you put your phone down, you're just listen. I've got YouTube Premium now. There's this feature on there that's called listening controls, which basically is like if you play music on your phone, like from like iTunes or something, you have bigger play controls, which makes it easier to like hit pause, because I hate it on YouTube's like app where the pause button disappears and I have to like tap the screen like 5 times and the button is so small. And like find the
Yeah.
pause button. I'm like, come on, man.
I'm someone who appreciates the sleep timer because I need some kind of noise just to fall asleep. But then like the ads will go on and they'll be like blaring and that'll jar me awake and then I have to start the whole process over again. I wish more apps had a sleep timer, you know?
Fair.
So there's that.
Yeah.
You have any sleep rituals, Roland?
I do the classic like do not disturb for an hour. And then I try to get off my phone at least like 20 minutes before I go
That's
to sleep.
healthy.
I know.
healthier.
Not to brag, but
That
what
is
can
a
I say?
brag. That's a big brag.
I'm just
Like,
better than a
all
lot of
kinds of
people.
sleep.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
I
can't
do
help it.
actually no. That's something I actually relate to quite easily. being- Well, so what's the big story? What's the biggest story?
Well, we can go through the rundown and find out.
Why don't you take us through the rundown and
Okay.
help me find out?
Sure. So today we're going to start with She-Hulk episode 8. Daredevil finally showed up, so we'll talk about that. Amsterdam, Margot Robbie, Christian Bale, John David Washington, and basically everybody else who could fit into the cast. Rings of Power, episode 7. We'll review that as well. Werewolf by Night seems like something very different for the MCU. We'll talk about that, and then we'll finish things up with ANDOR episode 5. That show looks really good. I have not yet started on it because I just haven't had the time, but Mags has, and she'll be reviewing that for us.
Excellent. All right. Well, let's swallow this pill. How was She-Hulk this week?
See, I muted myself again there. Sorry.
Hmm. You don't want to
I
talk
keep-
about it?
I was actually, I do want to talk about it, but before we talk about that, I'd rather like you guys talk about Super Mario Bros. Like the trailer is out. Tell me what's up
This
with
is
this
true.
new trailer.
It's out. We saw the cast list and we're like, oh my gosh, there's a lot of famous people in this that
Yeah.
probably didn't need to be in it. And the trailer came out and you're like, wow, that's correct.
Well, it looks good.
That's correct.
It looks
Yeah.
good. It looks.
It looks actually
good.
no, I will say it looks fantastic. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
it's very pretty and cute and it looks a lot of the 3D Super Mario that's in the
Yeah.
past years, but it still has its own little twist on it. You know, there's still
Yeah.
little
To be
things
fair,
you
they've
can
had a lot of time to perfect rendering these characters, and now that you don't have to play as them, they can really take their time. And I mean, these shots are beautiful, really.
I know.
I did notice Mario looks a little different. His eyes are a little further apart. He sort of doesn't have I don't know.
But
He feels a
you're
lot
talking about the butt
cleaner.
thing.
Well, also his butt. We could
Yeah,
talk
there it
about
is.
Mario's butt.
Oh, there
Like
it
an
is.
Where
Indian.
is it? Where is that thing?
That was trending for 2 days on Twitter, and I was always checking in on it because I wanted to see the update on what was happening. It was
They could give him a little more. Also,
Yeah.
doesn't he just kind of look American in this? Doesn't he look like the sound that's going to come out of him is just going to be American?
I hate to tell you this, Andrew, but he was always American.
What?
He was Italian American, but it was because he was from like New York. He just had like a very like, you know,
Yeah, but I mean,
now
Charles
it's
Martinet's
more like
Mario. Charles
Yeah.
Martinet's Mario has
Yeah.
always been this high-pitched Italian accent, and he may be Italian American, someone who moved to America, but that's a paisan. That's somebody
Yeah.
who knows, like he came to America or the Mushroom Kingdom, whichever.
Yeah.
Speaks English with music and whimsy in his voice, which
Very energetic.
yeah, which I noticed was missing.
Very. Yeah.
Did you notice that?
Oh,
Did anybody
big
else
time.
notice that? Yeah.
I mean,
Well, I mean, it's the first trailer, so I always take those with a grain of salt because you know that this is just all it's meant to do is kind of give you a sense of, well, this is a movie that's coming out. If you're a fan of it, here you go. It's the first look.
I disagree.
Doesn't give you the story.
The story doesn't even matter. I don't think for anybody watching this, the story, because we know the story. Princess Peach is in trouble. Mario's got to save her. That's been the story for 40 years. I'm sure there'll be a Donkey Kong cameo. It'll probably be some other celebrity, but let's just say it. Chris Pratt, you let us down. And I don't know if you personally let us down, or the studio is like, just use your normal voice. It'll be a lot better. But
well, even then, at the end, you can tell like he's doing like a little bit of an accent.
yeah,
Like at the very end, you see, which is very funny. He says the iconic Mario line, "Here we come," which is not the line. It's "Here we go." Like it's been very. I don't know. You can tell like, oh gosh, this guy's father-in-law is the Terminator. Let's keep bringing himself in movies. Maybe we can bring him in, do something. Maybe he made a deal. I don't know. But
the thing is,
I love Chris Pratt.
He's a really funny guy, and he normally
great.
rises to the occasion to do these kinds of things. But with voice acting, like, it's enough that you have his name. Let him do the Mario voice. Everybody wants to hear the Mario voice.
I think, if you put him the right character, then he'll kill it. He'll improvise himself. He'll add more. But when you're putting yourself into this very iconic character, he already has this iconic voice actor that's still working. Still could have used him. You're saying, it's hard because no matter what we're going to compare, but it's very disturbing. Speaking about voice actors, how did you feel about the rest? We have Jack Black as Bowser.
Jack Black did okay. Jack Black, I was impressed. He committed to being Bowser as opposed to being himself. But Jack Black's always been good at voice acting, They
have that fun evil eyebrow action that's always happening.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Didn't love Keegan-Michael Key as Toad, just because Toad also has a really iconic, high-pitched young voice, and it sounded like a guy doing like a little troll thing. And I'm like, that's not Toad.
Yeah,
that's a troll thing.
That one I'm a little like, I'm kind of on the fence. I don't hate it, and I'm like not entirely love it, but I liked it personally. I couldn't even recognize him. I didn't even know that was him at first for some reason.
I just knew it wasn't Toad.
Yeah.
And just based on these, I know Charlie Day's Luigi, I doubt it's going to be a thick Italian accent.
That is going to be so funny.
Or low-pitched, It's almost like they should have switched. Like,
I feel like he's going to do a very stereotypical, like, Brooklyn accent, and that's the only way I can imagine it. But Dan, do you have any thoughts and opinions about this? Are you a fan of the video game?
Okay, so I've played plenty of the games, but I'm not like a hardcore diehard fan of Super Mario or Nintendo things in general. I've never owned well, I think I owned a Nintendo Wii a long time ago, but even then I wasn't honestly, I played Wii Sports more than anything else, and that was the only reason I had it. So I'm not like somebody who, I mean, I know what their voices sound like, but it's only so much as this is the stereotypical Mario voice. As long as you get close enough to it, I'm okay with that. Like that's how I'll approach it. So I'll go into
They didn't
this
even get
expecting it.
close.
Well, okay, so I know they didn't get close in the trailer here, but and the movie probably is not gonna sound all that different. But honestly, as long as they put together a good film that's fun to watch, I don't really care how they sound because I'm not like that attached to the franchise.
Here's
But that's just me though. Like I know a lot of people. Other people
here's
are.
my problem with that though, is that like if you're gonna go so far as to make it look just like the game and really make all of these things beautiful, and you have millions and millions of fans who have been playing these games forever, you're going like, why wouldn't you just go one extra step? Actually, why would you not go that extra step? Why don't you just do what works and hire the people who've been doing it? Let them do the movie. Those are voice actors who have probably been waiting to prove their dramatic ability for years. And we love the characters already inherently. By hiring new actors, what you're going to do is you're going to change the characters. You're going to give them a different sensibility, and we're going to end up watching something that's weird. It's just going to be weird.
Yeah. I mean, again, I don't feel as strongly about it. I guess if I watch the movie and the voices are distracting from the story, then I'll be more worried about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm open to reinvention here. I think much more than maybe a lot of people who are fans of the games and the franchise. So
I'll say one more thing about it, and that's that, video games have cutscenes where like you watch the story unfold, and those are compelling. We've had some of those in Mario games, and I wouldn't mind watching like they're really good at storytelling in those, by the way. Even on like something like Mario Party, where you're just clicking through Toad's explanations of like, this is what's happening. I wouldn't mind, because the storytelling is good enough and the writing is good.
Mario Galaxy.
Show me this world. Let me totally be in that world with celebrity stuff. Suddenly, I'm just back in a theater watching a celebrity make money.
Yeah. It could have been like this beautiful, almost fan film, and then it just turns into a corporate thing. I know we want to move away from the subject, but do you guys have any predictions of what this movie is probably going to include?
Donkey Kong cameo. Somebody's got to play Yoshi. I'm sure that'll be. I mean, I'm expecting a lot more cameo voice casting in this.
That's fair.
Because
I do
there's
expect
a ton of characters.
A lot of the same. I do, because I think they're trying to, as every studio is these days, build a cinematic universe around this. So I think their goal is going to be not only to figure out like, can we spin out Luigi as its own movies, or
Yoshi's Island.
Yeah, or like, but like Donkey Kong shows up and like now we got a Donkey Kong thing. I wouldn't even be surprised if all of a sudden we had like some kind of Legend of Zelda thing that we randomly got a connection to. So,
yeah, that'd be good.
People have wanted a Zelda movie for a long time.
I think that could do really well in live action. Like that's a franchise. I think most Nintendo franchises don't.
Prank a long time ago.
Yeah, but like Zelda, I think of all of those classic Nintendo franchises, is probably the most translatable to live action. I don't know if they intend to do that though. Like maybe they'll keep it animated.
I think somebody else brought this up, but like there is an MCU already for Nintendo. It's Super Smash Brothers, and
that's what I was thinking.
If you tell that story, even that's incredible. I remember the opening cutscene to the original Super Smash Brothers, where it's like, oh, they're toys. We've just find out that they've all been toys this whole time. And there's Master Hand, who's just a kid playing with the toys. I mean, that would be mind-blowing still. I'm getting chills.
Well, that's what they did in the Lego movie, right? Like, that's how
Right.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind that at all. I mean, I'm pretty sure they're going to build up to that eventually, but they have to start with this first. I think maybe like lay the foundation.
Yeah.
So
back to predictions. I anticipate a Kirby movie and Metroid and Captain Falcon and all of those things because you're going to have to build the Super Smash Brothers movie.
I can see it.
Hey.
Personally, I think that they're gonna do a bald joke.
I
I'm just
don't.
gonna say it. I think no. I already know that he's gonna like take off his hat because he's gonna be like, "Oh, why do you think I wear this hat all the time?" And then he's gonna be like balding.
They've
I can
shown him
see
with
it.
his hair.
I know. I understand that.
As
But
long as they're insulting the character with his voice,
they're
you
already
think they're
going
also
against
going to make him
lore.
bald.
Yeah,
I hope not.
calling it here. Mark
I
it down.
really hope
Make a
not.
meme out of it. Remember.
Well, let's hope not. Geez, that's painful. Follow us on all the things, and we'll talk with you. We'll consort and consult and talk about Mario. How do you feel about his voice? Do you think it's going to ruin the chance at an NCU? Look at that. The Nintendo Cinematic
Ooh.
Universe.
That could
Ooh.
that's,
I see what you did
that's
there.
just marketing genius right there. Yeah.
Yeah, what can I say? But thank you for watching, and now on to the eating our vegetables and our greens. Let's talk about She-Hulk.
Yeah, let's talk about She-Hulk. There wasn't a whole lot of eating vegetables in this episode, but nope, brain to mouth barrier, not gonna go there. I don't know, Roland, if you saw this episode, but maybe
No,
you
but
know where
I
I was
saw what you
heading.
did there, Andrew. I liked it.
Okay. All right. Basically, Daredevil finally showed up. He won a case against Jen Walters, and then
Who's
they
the
went
man?
on an adventure together. And the night ended with Charlie Cox's Daredevil, or Matt Murdock, same people, all same person, obviously, doing the Walk of Shame. And toward the end of the episode, out of Jen Walters' apartment.
I don't know.
And
I don't know if you've ever done a walk of shame. A walk of shame. I feel great doing it.
Also,
I'm not
why did he
complaining
take off his
for-
shoes? I saw that. Aren't they in like, I don't know, New York or something? I would never walk barefoot.
No, I wouldn't. I was like, that seems a little. Why? What happened?
Because the entire show exists to try and subvert gender stereotypes, and that's one little extra joke that they can kick him while he's down with, and feminize him in this way. I also heard that she like takes him in his arms and like carries him into the bedroom. Is that right?
No,
I think that's a
no,
different character.
Different character? Weird.
that was different. That was in the trailer. That was somebody else. They just kind of are making out as they burst their way through the door, and they kind of have this moment where she's trying to take his clothes off, and of course it's super tight. So then the camera just kind of cuts to the point where they're already inside the room and then closing the door behind them. And this like a low angle shot looking at their feet as they're sort of clearly like she's stepping on his because, in her human form, she's smaller than him, I guess. Yeah. But yeah, there's a lot. She finds out that he's obviously Daredevil because we've seen the clip where he's kind of running away from her because his client was kidnapped by her client because her client was actually the evil person pretending to be a hero, and he was a bit of a narcissist. And there's that whole thing. But, overall the episode was pretty good. I didn't the bar for the show is so low that honestly, what feels like a good episode for most other shows would be like a down week. So I'm okay with that. I mean, as far as the quality here was good. I mean, this is from later in the episode, this image where she's smashing a bunch of screens.
I will never ever watch this show, so I just have a question out of curiosity. Is she ever intimate as She-Hulk? Or is she always in her human
She
form?
did that for that one episode, like, was it episode 5? It might have been
5?
episode 6.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was episode.
I'm not going to comment
5.
on that one. Yeah. No.
Yeah, I think it was this one, episode 5. Because she went out dating like a bunch of guys who all dated her for the wrong reasons or didn't like her at all, and then she slept with one of them, and then he didn't call her back because the dude saw her as Jen Walters after the fact, and he was like, I'm into you and you're She-Hulk, because he's like this big dude himself. And so, and then it ties into how she wins her case against Titania, which was like a nice way to tie the two stories together. Certainly better than what they've done in a lot of the episodes. But anyway, this episode, yeah, it was the idea is she's trying to find somebody who likes her for Jen Walters, not for being She-Hulk. And Daredevil seemed to be the first person that had a genuine connection with her as both sides of her alter egos. So yeah, I mean, they're doing a better job with the character development, I think. There was it kind of spilled over from last episode where she went on this retreat where Abomination has his own ranch, and it's basically for people to go rehab, like all these superhero people. There was a man bull, and it was a neat episode. But what I realized that watching back that episode again and then this episode is the CGI gets really spotty in a lot of the scenes where clearly Marvel's like production supervisors, VFX supervisors, whoever, they were like, it's okay if we don't exactly get this 100% right. But then, like, for example, this sequence that you're seeing on screen now at the gala where she's one of 6 female lawyers of the year, her CGI got really good toward the end when she was smashing screens, and then she gets caught. The police obviously are. Oh, there's the walk of shame. Wow, these pictures are out of sequence. Anyway, the point being, the CGI gets better in certain shots, but it gets really bad in other shots. I'm starting to realize that's a function of they either gave the people more time to work on it or said, hey, here's more money to work on it. And unfortunately, for whatever reason, that level of quality is not applied throughout the show. And that's disappointing, because then you get like these jarring shots. Huh?
That's what's disappointing? The CGI?
Well, I mean, look, on top of everything else, that's what's disappointing. Like, for example, when this vetting episode, some of the shots She-Hulk looked fantastic, but then whenever they go to like the office space where she works, whether it's a conference room scene, her own office, her CGI looks terrible. And I'm like, what is going on? It looks like PS4 video game graphics when you're playing Grand Theft Auto, and that's not meant to be a compliment. But like, I just so wish the CGI was okay. Just to kind of wrap things up, by the way, one other thing about CGI that I realized, one of the reasons why the CGI looks bad when it does is Tatiana Maslany is somebody who's got an incredibly emotive face. Like, so whenever you see her acting in the show, she's using like every muscle on her face and like her head and everything. She's very emotive. And then the She-Hulk character, that model is just not nearly as emotive. So the voice, the face acting, or what, all of that comes across as incredibly stiff, and with her voice behind it, it just throws you off, because like you just watched the scene where she was herself and she was incredibly emotive, and now you're hearing her voice, but you're seeing this seemingly robotic character. So even when the rendering is good,
that's a common problem in animation and dubbing and all kinds of stuff, where you get a really great performance and the animation doesn't honor the performance at all. That's a problem that exists everywhere, but it's disappointing when it happens no matter what. Yeah. I feel like we've been just talking about this show forever. How many left?
One
right?
more.
Oh. Yeah. Yep.
Sweet release.
8 out of 9. So we got one more to go.
Oh
my God. Plan is to binge watch it this week, so I can maybe defend this show, because I feel like we've just been dragging it through the mud
Nobody has anything good to say about it except for Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
No, I mean, look, I think, okay, here's the thing. I think the show hit its low point pretty early on, and it's getting better. It's gotten better from there, but it's really, I think it's incredibly uneven, because the show is too packed. They're trying to do too much, so each episode feels somewhat even, or just when you know what the show is, the next episode is something completely different. So it's sort of like either on purpose playing with your expectations, but in doing so, when you only have 20 minutes a week for 9 weeks to do this, if you don't settle on a certain formula of sorts, like in terms of when you click on this episode, this is what you expect to see, then you're really going to create this kind of a feeling where the audience doesn't know what to expect, and therefore they're just sort of confused what the show is all about. And that's kind of my thing about this, is like one week we get like a true sitcom sort of an episode, the next week it feels like an MCU movie crunched into 20 minutes, and then some other weeks it's trying to combine both of those into one and getting neither of them, doing a very good job with either of those concepts. So yeah, and then the grand, because of how closely this show connects to a lot of other, not closely, but like we have Wong coming in, we have all these other characters who are in these other parts of the MCU and they look and behave totally differently. I don't know how much of the show's tone is going to translate to those characters when they show up in their next movies and iterations and TV shows. So in the grander scheme of things, I just don't know how much this show is adding to the bigger picture, and
Has
is
it?
it worth like all
Yeah.
the whole Captain America thing that they did, and like in episode 1, the whole it was a virgin. Like, is it really worth, like, oh, here's a big one. So in the Matt Murdock's in the courtroom, one of the things that he brings up as when defending his client is, may I remind you that the Sokovia Accords have been repealed. And it just like drops there, moving on. And I was like, whoa, the Sokovia Accords are gone? Like the thing that Captain America Civil War was based on, that broke up the Avengers, that like played into everything that happened all the way till Endgame, and then has even been mentioned in the Phase 4 stuff since. And all of a sudden to say it's done is, oh, it's been repealed, and then just move on. I'm like, okay, like that kind of
Has
thing.
it violated the MCU enough to the point where you would call this show non-canonical?
It's difficult because of how many of these other like cameos they're making. Because I'm like, if I call this non-canonical, then
Right, but is this just another universe in the multiverse? Are we gonna
the,
take that route?
there is a theory going around on the internet. I don't know how many people prescribe to it, where basically they think that every project in the MCU Phase 4 is like in its own little universe. And so when we get to like the Secret Wars, all of those things are finally going to merge. So all these characters we've been watching, like Moon Knight exists in his own little bubble, and
Hmm.
WandaVision clearly happened in the same, as Doctor Strange.
Not
But like there's some of these
necessarily,
other
because they
things.
walked back a bunch of this stuff and it just happens
Yeah,
similarly. So
exactly, like
that
they're
could work.
variants. Like maybe some variants of that happened in the main MCU, but then what we saw was like a slightly different variant of that. I don't know. I'm kind of over the idea of just how casually they've sort of started to, play to the idea of variants and multiverse kind of things.
Yeah,
Because
at
if
the
you're
end
gonna
of the day, it's
introduce
lazy
that,
writing.
then yeah, exactly. Because if you're gonna introduce it, then you have to still stick to some sort of ground rules. You can't just be like, well, everything is relative, because then nothing matters. Like that's,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, well, I mean, the Marvel stuff seems to be mattering less and less,
yeah.
but they're gonna keep making
Yeah.
more. So if you
You know
like
what
it,
makes it especially look worse is the fact that this is running at the same time as Andor and the Rings of Power and the House of the Dragon, because
hmm,
you're looking at all these, franchises that are incredibly mature and very well thought out storytelling from episode to episode, and then for some reason at right then and there, Marvel's putting out probably its least well thought out show. Like I'd rather, like, if they had I don't know, let's say even Falcon and the Winter Soldier, WandaVision, or Moon Knight running right now, because it's sometimes it makes it look worse simply by comparison, because naturally in your mind you're like, you either just watch Andor or you're about to watch Rings of Power after it, and then She-Hulk just looks like it's worse just by comparison alone. So it's not helping his case. But
yeah. Uh, well, thankfully, there's only one episode left, and I never have to hear about it again. Hopefully. We can only hope. But thanks for watching, and hopefully you like this and or want to talk about it. We'll respond. If you're one of those creepy people who's like, this show's great, I think you're creepy, number one. But number two, I don't mind debating you in the comments. Let's do it. Let's duke it out. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, all the things. Be part of the conversation. And now, why don't we shift gears and talk about a movie that came out this week? I saw Amsterdam, and this is an all-star cast with a great script, honestly. pretty good storytelling. It's a period piece, and as it reminds you in the first seconds of the movie, a lot of it actually happened. So yeah, I'll
Really?
just say it. I like this movie.
You like a good period piece?
Generally, I don't. I've been really annoyed with them lately, but it was an interesting period of time, and the points that it makes are really good. And with any period piece that comes out, you always have to ask yourself, why are they taking us back there now? And I actually think that this was like a relevant movie, and the comments that I got from it, like the take that I felt like it was making was, war will bring people together and show them the humanity. We don't need to go to war to recognize each other's humanity. And at the same time, there's these just everyday people who form these real relationships. They feel like real people. In a world where like all these, like, they stumble upon this conspiracy for a one world government and the Nazi regime right as the Nazis are getting into power in Germany, and they have these supporters in America. It's
Which is true, right? Like this is historically accurate to that some degree, at least.
yeah.
Yeah.
But the acting is really good, with the exception of one particular person, and we'll get to it. The writing was good, the storytelling was great, and what was cool about it is that it wasn't a predictable, beginning, middle, end thing. There's actually all these deviations where you start watching something happen, and you have the voiceover telling you the story, and then you have to have certain flashbacks, or you have to explain or justify certain things. And so it's almost like just having a conversation with these characters where, oh, by the way, this is what happened. And you get the whole story, but it's very natural. The flow of it is just, it's different than a lot of movies I've seen. And it has modern pacing. So it's a long movie, but it's not slow. I liked it.
Okay. All right.
I got a question. Sorry, Roland,
Sure.
go ahead.
No.
I was gonna ask, so the cast for this movie is absolutely stacked. I mean, you got obviously like the main three. You have Margot Robbie, John David Washington, and Christian Bale. But then you have like I think Taylor Swift is in this, and there's Robert De Niro. I think we saw Zoe Saldana on screen earlier. There's and that's probably even that is scratching the surface. And David O. Russell, he's an Academy Award-winning director. I mean, he's known as somebody that talent kind of gravitates to. So to that end, I mean, how much of this movie felt like an ensemble cast, or was it more like the story was still focused on on the posters you have these three people like John David Washington,
Yeah.
Margot Robbie, and Christian Bale, or was it truly an ensemble kind of a
What
film?
was so refreshing about it is that the main three really just felt like regular people, and they were playing regular people, relating in some of the most human ways, in the most inhumane times. It was really just like a beautiful portrait of relationships that can genuinely emerge. With some of the other characters, there are little cameo type appearances. Mike Myers and Michael Shannon together are hilarious, but it's not about it being them. And that's what I hate so much about ensemble casts, is that you get these shots when then they sort of look at the camera and they go, yeah, by the way, it's me. And I hate that. And this was not that. Everybody was there to be the character that they were, except Taylor Swift. She should not have been in this movie. She should not act. And on that note, Harry Styles, all pop stars, stay out of television and movies. Do music. You're fine at that, depending on how much you actually do, because you have producers and all that stuff and songwriters and who knows. But stay out of movies. You can't act. It's there on display. Everybody can see it. We know you're a face, you're a voice, but you can't bring a real character to life. And that's my little gripe there. Outside of that, did Robert De Niro need to be in it? No. He carried that off fine. Chris Rock also didn't need to be in it. But I thought it was nice to see him in, a serious role. He still brought his Chris Rockiness to it. And
Kind of reminded me of Fargo. Like from seeing trailers and stuff like that. That kind of, because he was in the Fargo TV show, wasn't he?
He was. They did like because it's basically an anthology now, right? Like so there was like an iteration of the show where he was like one of the featured characters.
Yeah, but it's like the movie moved along beautifully. There's twists, and Rami Malek and Anya Taylor-Joy, they were really, really well cast and acted their parts beautifully. I gotta say, like, I hope a lot of people see it because I felt this is one of those feel-good movies. I felt good walking out of the theater.
I didn't even realize that was Anya Taylor-Joy until I was like, wait, is that her? She looks totally different from this angle.
She's always changing her hair color.
Yeah, that's probably what it is. I was like throwing up like, who is that?
Yeah. So there's a whole like mystery that's going on. Would you say that, or that's what I read, I don't know. Would you say that it kind of came to a good close? Like it was kind of just wrapped in a bow, or like how would you describe the ending? Your feelings towards it mainly.
I thought it ended nicely. I thought it ended realistically. It wasn't your Hollywood ending. It was my two friends who were in love with each other ran away and lived their lives. And I wish I had gone with them, but he didn't. And he tried to find his own life. And that's the true story of a lot of veterans from World War I. They were left marred, disfigured, and sort of rejected by society because it didn't know what to do with them. And he had to find a place of his own, and he may have struggled with that. We don't know. But I found that to be realistic and refreshingly so. And he still has an appreciation for the relationship that he formed with these people.
That's good. I like that.
What are people saying?
Oh, I don't like nothing crazy, like nothing too elaborate. It was just reading into things, writing down questions. Because I didn't have time to watch it this weekend. I really wanted to ever since I saw the trailer because it looked very fun and exciting. And then
it was.
He did some like really cool movies like Silver Lining Playbook, American Hustle, which I enjoyed.
I was surprised Bradley Cooper didn't make any appearance in this, actually.
I know.
Yeah, he's like he's one of those staples for David O. Russell at this point. Yeah.
Also did Fighter, which I didn't even realize. Speaking of what other people are saying. Vibe.
Sorry,
I was saying that he also did The Fighter, which is another Christian Bale movie that he did, which is just like very different vibe. So it was interesting.
Yeah, Christian Bale, the character was unlike anything I'd seen him do before, and I really liked these people. I haven't liked characters in a very long time. These were very likable people.
I just wanted to briefly touch upon this because it's on screen and it is something that you hinted at, Andrew, earlier. The audiences seem to like it. I mean, 62% isn't exactly very encouraging, especially when you're looking at only like just a little over 250 reviews, it seems like, verified. So it's not like it's 100,000 reviews that they're going off of, but that number is, could be a lot higher. Usually you see like, I think for Don't Worry Darling, the score was in the high 80s and the critic score was in the 30s or 40s. But the critics here
so much
are
better
sitting
than
at
Don't Worry Darling. I can't
33.
Oh my God.
Well, speaking of Amsterdam, though, like it's 33% from the critics, and this is 168 reviews when you're looking at it. It's not encouraging.
Are people even listening to the critics anymore? They've been so out of touch for so long. What possible problem do they have with this?
I don't know. Like, okay, so I'll go through what they're saying.
Scroll down.
Well, here's the consensus. It says the Amsterdam is a bunch of big stars and a very busy plot. all of which amounts to painlessly less than the sum of its dazzling parts. So that's the consensus. Let me find out what some of the reviews themselves are saying. Here we go. So, New York Magazine. Sorry,
Yeah.
go ahead.
I was gonna say the Roger Ebert site gave it 1.5 stars, saying it was simultaneously overstuffed and undernourished, frantic and meandering. Amsterdam is one big star-studded hot mess of a movie.
Wow. Okay.
It
Well,
deviated in structure from everything that we see, and it didn't spoon feed you everything. But at the same time, it wasn't overly obscure. It was different, and it was refreshing, and it was human.
Yeah.
I
guess they
think,
said that their big problem is that they didn't care for the flashbacks. It was too confusing for them. And the grand finale gives us some interminable, I don't even know what that word is, narration explaining the importance of love and kindness over the film's images of Bohemian Rhapsody we'd just seen not too long ago.
okay. Well, I think the theme, if I've skimmed through some of these reviews that are on Rotten Tomatoes, and it seems like the theme is, for the people who are criticizing it as not being a good film, is it sets up a good premise, but then it becomes a little too convoluted, and then they overstuff it with too many cameos. That seems to be like the...
It's not too convoluted. Pay attention. It's a good movie.
I guess sometimes I do wonder myself, like when I watch a movie and I'm like, this was fantastic. Masterpiece. But then I see these kind of reviews, I'm like, clearly a lot of these people, like, it just kind of went over their heads, or they just had a completely different view of it. Like, that's what I feel like sometimes that happens. It seems like maybe this is one of those movies that people will probably...
This is why we keep having stupid movies made.
Yeah. They did say that they liked the chemistry going on, and there was some very entertaining scenes. But then
and there's a good review here from Rolling Stone where it says, Russell, to his everlasting credit, David O. Russell, that is the director, has made a film in which cockeyed optimism at this moment in the world somehow feels like a radical act. And I don't know if he's referring to like the real world or like World War II, pre-World War II era.
No, that's exactly what I'm saying. Is like when you ask yourself, why are they making this period piece now? And usually what it's been is people trying to make points about how things have actually always been and now things need to change. And that's like, this wasn't a political movie. It was about humans, and it was about humanity and how to find, your place in a society that kind of doesn't want you to exist. And a true, genuine, happy relationship between people. And he didn't have like this big romance. It wasn't every Hollywood story. I do think that it's relevant now in a way that a lot of movies are just missing it. It's the opposite of She-Hulk. Like, it showed a lot of real human interaction, and made points that last throughout, the 20th century, but are still relevant today. I think it did a good job of, showing us that things have always been a certain way, but not in a way that's like, things absolutely need to change. We need to revolt and strike and figure. And it wasn't that. It was, people are always going to be people. And even in the most inhumane times, you can find humanity. I think that's a really nice, optimistic message.
Okay.
So there. Great movie. Go see it. Don't get distracted. Watch the movie. I liked it. Let's move on. Let's just keep the show going, because I could defend this thing to my grave.
I mean, would you, just because I know what you're going to say, but just for the sake of it, let me ask, would you recommend this to somebody who wants to go to a theater and watch this? Because you can watch this movie, you can watch Don't Worry Darling, The Woman King, Avatar re-release, from 2009.
No, you don't have to watch that. You don't have to.
Out of every single one of the ones you mentioned, I would say this is one of the better ones. See this one instead.
Yeah.
Oh, that happened. Sorry about that.
Get back here, Roland. Yeah. Okay. So please go see it. Tell me what you think, because I think, more people should see it. Thanks for watching this, and be sure to subscribe on all of the things: Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, Spotify, all the podcast stuff, Instagram, TikTok. We're on Instagram and TikTok. We make reels and we tell you to watch the show here. Be there or be square. And now let us move on. Let's see what's happening with Rings of Power. I'm not watching this, but Magdalena and Catriona are, and they had some stuff to say about the latest episode. Stay tuned.
This week's episode, sad, like very sad, very depressing. It's not jolly anymore. Nothing really is. Not a single storyline has its happy moment. And I see what they're trying to do, what the creators of the show try to do. They really try to make you feel for those characters, for those situations. The problem is you can't connect to those things if you haven't had enough time or empathy build for those characters and those themes and those situations and horses that all of a sudden become relevant without us even having prior knowledge.
Wait a minute! Who are you?
I love horses, but I was just kind of like, okay, like who cares? You didn't really show us any relationship that Isildur had with the horse, so it's like you could tell me anything about this horse, and it's like I guess I have to believe it because you're just never gonna show me the proof. Like you should have introduced this episodes ago. It's lazy writing, but it's like, don't you want us to care? Like I'm trying so hard and I just don't.
To be fair, I remember Isildur having a scene with his horse when we get to meet Isildur, so we know the horse was important. But those things don't work if we don't see a quality time that Isildur had with the horse. Yeah, it's just all of a sudden I'm forced to feel for someone who I didn't know they existed in the first place, or I completely forgot because they were this irrelevant. We're starting in the Mordor apocalypse setting, and like the first question that comes to mind is how did they survive that? You know, that's a blast of power and fire that was quite near them.
There's this one guy crawling on the ground who's on fire and he's like, you know, you can hear him, he's like, ah. But everybody just goes to save the main characters who nobody's on fire. All the main characters are just like a big logs on one and stuff like that. It's like, hey, you know, like I think they can wait. Like some of these people need fires put out on them.
Yeah, there were losses and stuff, but surprise, surprise, all characters that were important to the story or relevant, they survived. And I feel like it's a missed opportunity. They could have killed off some of characters like Rowan and Arendir, and nope, they all still get to live happily and ever after. I mean, yeah, we'll see, but
surprise, surprise, Bronwyn defied all odds, like, you know, shot by 2 arrows last episode, almost had her throat slit by an orc, exploded in Mordor. Like she's like the Terminator, like she's unstoppable.
Yeah, no drama. There's tremendous amount of drama without us actually feeling anything for it. So yeah, it sucks. It doesn't work. I don't know what else to say about that.
So Elrond's trying to negotiate with Durin's father, the king. In exchange for letting the elves mine for Mithril, they would offer them 5 centuries of game grain and wood. And immediately I thought, like, that's the exact same thing I've promised people in like a campaign of Catan. And I was just like wondering, like, is this where some of the writing came from? Like they all sat around and played a campaign and they're like, oh my god, we should put this in the show. Not really an important note, just thought it was kind of funny. My feelings of Elrond, the actor at least, have changed. I think that he is really doing probably like one of the best jobs in the show. Him and Durin, like I look forward to their scenes. They're the only ones that are interesting to me right now. They're the funniest characters, like they actually have back and forth. There's another shot for shot scene here, and it's very similar to the first Lord of the Rings.
They were hiding from orcs, so Theo and Galadriel were in this creek, which was a huge homage to our Frodo and Sam and Pippin and Merry hiding from Nazgul in a similar sort of creek, and then Org and Nazgul trying to smell them. And yeah, like, again, nothing really is, nothing original. Perhaps there were little, I don't know, notes to the trilogy in order for the audience to somehow connect, and I don't know, it feels very forced. It feels like a rip-off to me. It doesn't work, and I'm tired of seeing those homages to Lord of the Rings.
There's a lot here to the show where, like, I understand what they're trying to do, but it's just not being executed correctly.
Celeborn, we get to finally find out what happened to Celeborn, because we had so many discussions and fans were not happy that they completely skipped Celeborn, but I'm glad that they straighten it out. As far as we know, you know, he's somewhere out there. It's fine. They probably will come together at some point. But yeah, at least we got the answer. So I'm happy about that. I appreciate that. When Elrond and Durin started mining on their own for the Mithril and stuff, you know, the whole mountain moved. It was incredible to me that the king hasn't found them earlier. Like, they made the actual mountain move. It was strange for him not to appear there sooner. Speaking of which, they dig deep enough, they found the Mithril, and I called it, Balrog. We get to see Balrog, and it's pretty awesome. Yeah, they awaken it. Now there's no going back. We all know how it goes from now, and I feel sorry for Khazad-dûm. Overall, depressing episode, and yeah, thanks for watching, and see you guys next week.
All right, so this was the big thing that I guess Roland was looking forward to. This was Werewolf by Night. It was the black and white horror thriller that was kind of a throwback to oldies horror movies, but set in the MCU. It was a departure from a lot of the things that we've seen from Marvel, in that it really goes into classic horror and veers away from just superhero stuff. It introduces a new kind of mythology into the MCU. I think at the end we kind of get a tie-in, but having said all of that, I really didn't understand what I was watching at all.
That's fair. That's absolutely fair. They kind of just like, hey, just so you know, this is MCU, but there's a whole nother world in this connected world.
Can you explain it to me? Because I don't understand any of it. Granted, I watched it in two parts, because at first I was like sleepy and I was like, I don't know what's going on. I couldn't latch on to anything. And then I went back and I watched the rest of it and I was like, I still don't really understand any of this. What's going on with this thing?
So basically, by the way, I was a monster boy as a kid. I've always been into monsters, ghouls, all that stuff. That was always my jam. I went werewolf hunting as a child. It wasn't good because there was coyotes and stuff and I had to go home. But I've always just had a fascination with this. And basically, Werewolf by Night just kind of starts off saying, hey, we are in the MCU, but this is a totally different world inside the world, a world that isn't really shown, a world that's filled with monsters and all these supernatural things. And then we kind of see this almost like fairy tale book of the journal of the Bloodstone Patriarch, who, spoiler alert, is dying. He died, and we see the funeral later, but we see some of these supernatural creatures, and we see this and that, and kind of like hints and like even a nod to Bigfoot if you go back and look at it. And we walk into this beautiful trophy room, which has all these like monster heads in it, and we are introduced to these interesting characters, honestly, that are like hunters, including Jack Russell. I don't think they ever say his last name, but that is his name. It's not his birth name, I should say that.
Yeah.
But basically, just he goes in and they start talking, and you can kind of tell this world building of what's going on, and then Elsa Bloodstone comes in, and we find out that this is a hunt of who is going to be the new leader for this organization of killing monsters. If you couldn't tell from all the trophies in that room, there's a lot of really cool Easter eggs. Nothing really connecting to a lot of like Marvel comics, but just cool things to look at. This is really a cool effects. And we get into it, and we learn a little more about Jack and realize that he is different. Just because he has a lot of kills, that doesn't mean that they're monster kills necessarily. And he's not there to actually hunt. Then we see Man-Thing, which was so awesome to see. Man-Thing is Marvel's version of Swamp Thing. And fun fact about those two characters were created by people who were roommates in college.
Really?
And they came out around the same year. So don't know how that worked out. That's always been like a long running joke.
Wait, who copied who?
We'll never know.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
I think Man-Thing predates Swamp Thing, or I don't know. Honestly, somebody could Google that.
Well, yeah, it's 50-50,
Yeah.
Either one came first or the other.
I will say, watching this, like, it was refreshing to see the horror tropes, that sort of noir lighting. I think they nailed it aesthetically in a lot of places. Although some of the CGI stuff still feels like Marvel CGI stuff when they put it in there, and it did sort of, scream out to me. I wonder if it's any easier or harder to do that stuff in black and white and make it still look good. But I would venture to say it would probably be easier because you can obscure things in shadows. But that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, you definitely hide some stuff.
Yeah, I felt like this was, I don't know, I didn't really have any context. And between all the battles and chase scenes, I was a little bored by the story. Is this a story thing for you, or do you think this is just sort of a doorway into expanding the MCU, and a stylistic one at that?
I think this is a very fun way of a kind of special introduction to a whole like different thing that's a part of Marvel Comics and has been part of the Marvel Comics since like almost the beginning of Marvel. They had all these like amazing tales of adventure where they're doing creature features, and this has been a big part of the comics for so long, and they have so much fun stuff that they've done in like the past, I don't know, 2 decades.
No, the creature features is a really cool thing to get into.
Yes.
But I don't know if it necessarily needs to be, interconnected. Do you think that they're going to try and merge these with other superheroes, or try to make sort of a horror MCU that's self-contained?
I think we were kind of talking about this when we were talking about the Blade delay. I do think that they're going to start doing like the Midnight Suns and talk about like dark Marvel, and really delve into the monsters that are secretly hidden. I think there's a lot of potential, and after seeing the positive feedback with this and the positive feedback with Moon Knight, which as we all know came from a Werewolf by Night comic book, and they kind of hint at it in the show, they're seeing that people are liking this and there's a lot of potential to work with.
Well, it is a nice break from, superhero, supervillain. And I do remember, like, superheroes used to fight monsters every once in a while.
Oh, yeah.
We don't see a whole lot of that. Everything since the original Spider-Man run, the Sony one, it hasn't been like this weird thing emerged. It's some disaffected guy who's in a horrible accident, who has a gripe with society, and the superhero needs to stand up against him. But like regular monsters, where there's no political agenda, there's no like gripe with society. It's just rah! And it's like, I gotta fix this problem. Give me a second.
Yeah, literally.
That's kind of nice to see.
And fighting, like superheroes fighting against monsters, that was the classic. You know,
Yeah.
you go back even before comics, you look at like stories from like medieval times, they're fighting dragons. You go back even more, they're fighting this creature with, you know, Beowulf, and then we have Greek mythology or the Minotaur. That was
It's
the
it's
thing.
it's interesting because, you know, when you introduce this kind of thing, again, you have to ask yourself, why are they making these things now? But like this obscures evil back to looming threat, you know, survival thing. When you don't have like, because monsters don't really have motives besides survival and eating generally. They want to like eat the people in the city, or they want to destroy things, or they're wild and they need to be tamed. Like,
Yeah.
do you think that that says anything about the messaging in this, that like this isn't about disagreements so much as threats?
100%. I think that's even why they tried to go with the black and white filter, because you can even say that Elsa Bloodstone, who is not exactly the protagonist, but she almost is really, her worldview is black and white. It's always been the monsters versus the humans. And then Jack, you know, comes up, shows that there's actually like, that's not the full story. And then you see Man-Thing, who's just protecting himself and all this stuff, and realize, oh, wait, there's a little more that's going on that I never realized. And so when she finally gets that Bloodstone and kind of helps Jack escape and realize that there is humanity in these inhuman things, that's when the Bloodstone color, that's always been the only source of color in the whole thing, starts spreading into the world and showing that things aren't black and white. So I think that's a great way of putting it.
That's a classic Wizard of Oz technique of playing black and white against color to make a statement. And that's, you know, this certainly had more imagination. I just didn't see much of a story yet. But as we know, this was only an hour long, which is shorter than just about everything else Marvel's been asking you to watch lately.
And a great time,
it's like
by the
54 minutes.
54 minutes. And what it is, it's a preamble of what's to come. And I think that, you know, I'm into it. It's a different direction than we've been heading. And I think we're kind of burnt out on this person versus this person with an opposing worldview, because that's not really an escape from everyday life, is it?
Yeah. We like a good melodrama, but every once in a while you gotta change it up.
I think so.
And I just want to say, dude, props to Marvel for making Man-Thing look so cool. I thought he was adorable, and there was so much detail. And I don't know if you noticed, but if you look in his like eyes, when he's like angry, the pupils are like very spread out. And then once Elsa calls him by his real name, Ted, it comes back together in this almost human-esque eyes.
That's
so
nice. Yeah,
there's a lot of fun
touches.
details that I really enjoyed with this. And the Werewolf by Night. I'm usually a little weird when they show a human face, but I think it really worked.
I think, especially with the callback to the 1930s aesthetic, I think it worked really nicely.
Yeah.
You know, that's classic horror, and just in time for Halloween. You know, that's a look you could pull off. So go for it, people. Werewolf was a favorite costume of mine growing up.
Same.
In a world where we have, you know, Planet of the Apes, Andy Serkis is acting the heck out of a motion capture suit so that they can do a total CGI ape.
Yeah.
You know, you get something like this, and I'm like, this is a
really good throwback. Not just a good throwback, but it's really nice, you know, to put that in the same movie as something with crazy CGI like Man-Thing. It's like, you can do both. And, you know, it's not so much about, you know, the incredible transformation sequence. It's like, no, there's still a man there, and you can pretend. And I like that playfulness that's still in it, but at the same time, you can have this crazy monster next to you that's beautifully crafted.
Yeah, I think that's the kind of like a big point in horror films, is that horror has always tried to get like the best technology it can. You know, when the 1980s hit, they kind of like found the wonders of latex, I guess, and started body horror and just was like upping the ante with
a lot of Cronenberg
puppets
stuff
and animatronics and all this stuff like that. And then we get into CGI and getting more and more crazy. And this kind of, how I saw it, shows like you can have the best CGI and you can also have something super awesome with practical effects, like the Werewolf. It just...
Yeah, it's nice. We're seeing that balance play out between practical and computer generated. And we've been asking for that for a long time. Yeah. Something like She-Hulk probably could take a lesson from Werewolf by Night.
You know, She-Hulk, I was going to say, they actually have this woman who's like 6'7", like a real person who they use as their reference within scenes for the She-Hulk anime. So they probably shoot the real woman who's wearing all these same clothes as Tatiana Maslany's character would be in the She-Hulk model, CGI model would be. And then they replace the whole thing with a CGI model. And there was a part of me was thinking, why don't they just paint her green?
Paint her green.
And then do a face replespacement. But
oh my gosh.
I can see how that might not work all the time.
Paint her green.
I don't know. I mean, I like this. This is certainly a better transformation than what you saw in Professor Lupin transforming into a werewolf in Harry Potter. I was never a fan of like what that turned into. This looks like, okay, this would have been scarier, right? Because you're like, there's still a person there, and you know this thing could exist in real life because it has like those human eyes. Whereas if you turn into a CGI werewolf, I just don't, like you are suspending your disbelief, but it's less likely that you're subconsciously thinking, what are the chances I'm going to run into this thing in real life? So you're scared for the people on screen, but you don't think that will ever happen to you. That guy could like show up in my house at some point and just like tear me to shreds because he looks like that could be real. Like, I don't know. Anyway.
I don't want to get too crazy with the conversation, but I will say that I did like the Harry Potter werewolf. I thought it was a very fun design and very freaky. I mean, if I saw a hairless cat looking thing like that, I would be scared so much. But I don't want to get too crazy.
I mean, it looks like Rotten Tomatoes likes this thing. It sounds like you liked it. I was a little lost, but at the same time, I can appreciate the aesthetic statement and the new direction for Marvel. Any final word on this where like you can just say, good thing to watch? Like,
I think it's just awesome that finally the critics and audience are agreeing on something.
On one thing, yeah.
Yeah.
But, I'm surprised. And it's got over 1,000 audience reviews. And I mean, 73 for a TV show or TV movie, 73 critics reviews gets you around or like certified fresh rating, which is good.
Yeah, so, I'm actually kind of charmed by the fact that it's 54 minutes and yet everybody watched it and it wasn't, like there's hype around it. People like it. There's enthusiasm for reviewing it and talking about it. And it's the exact opposite of, another miniseries that you can watch, for 7 hours.
That's what I thought it would be. And then I was like, but wait, isn't everything else that they're doing on Disney Plus a miniseries anyway? So how would this be different? Then I saw like, oh, it's just a 54-minute TV movie, basically. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
And those two numbers, 92, 94% on Rotten Tomatoes, I know Rotten Tomatoes isn't the be-all, end-all to judge how good something is.
No,
but
it really isn't.
It really, right. But like this is on to that end, though. This is the only project that I think in Phase 4 of the MCU, maybe other than WandaVision. I think WandaVision might have had similar kind of ratings, where the two numbers are in the 90s, and there's like agreement at that high of a level, which for the MCU is a good thing, I suppose. Yeah.
Well, and I'll put one more cap on this and just say, like, I think we're ready to have shorter content. I think people have gotten lazy with writing and editing. And they're just taking the long way around the bush for everything, around the barn, not the bush, around the barn, the long way around the barn. They're taking the long route when they could be a lot more efficient with their storytelling. They could get the point across faster. They don't have to linger on so much because as we, leave pandemic lifestyle where we had nothing to do but watch television, we don't need you to fill up 12 hours of our day anymore. 1 hour is sufficient, and do a good job with it, and then I'll come back and watch the next thing you make. I think this is a good direction to head in.
Yeah, you don't have to stretch out everything. I feel like that's a lot of people's complaints with Disney shows, is that this could have been so good if they just kept it at an hour, or just like a simple movie, to kind of keep that magic contained.
Yeah, I think we're getting a little too much information now. But if you want more information, subscribe to all of the channels. We'll talk about all this stuff as long as we possibly can. We're on Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, Spotify, other things. You know, anywhere. We're up. We even got our own thing. Find us on the internet and be part of this conversation. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. Let us know what you think. And now, what's the next thing we're talking about? Andor. Oh, I watched the first few episodes and I thought it was fine, but I'm not a big Star Wars guy. If you are a big Star Wars guy, sit back and relax and enjoy what we have to say about episode 5.
People are standing up.
Under episode 5, you kind of see this theme of series really like trying to take their time to set the pace, to introduce everything. But unlike any other series or films that do the same thing, in Andor, I actually don't really mind it. So all those exposés and conversations that are happening in those quote-unquote waiting unimportant scenes are actually very well written and still very much part of like the show. And I keep saying this, Star Wars is no more about lightsabers and just shooting. It's just about having like an intellectual, intelligent conversation and inviting audience to sort of participate. They just don't treat me like an idiot, and I'm a sucker for this. Every review I keep mentioning the music, and yeah, the music is still awesome. And now I'm actually hearing themes of like a bit of Bond, bit of Sherlock Holmes, and like the TV series, of course, with Benedict Cumberbatch. It's good. It's a good feeling. I like having this connection there. We get to see the relationship between the officer Cyril Karn. Well, I'm not sure if he's officer. I think he's like all kicked out now, and he's no longer part of the Empire Police. We get to see an insight into his relationship with his mom, and yep, it's not great. We can tell that the mom's trying to do her best. She wants to help, but yeah, it's not done in the best way. So the scenes between those two is used as like a comic relief, and it's like a nice break in between, and it doesn't feel forced, but at the same time it kind of pushes the story and, you know, the character arc of the Cyril sort of onwards, because obviously he's probably gonna seek their revenge on Andor and stuff. We see him with the hologram, and it's great. I really like it. It's well done. It's not boring, but god damn it, that mom is she's a piece of work. Andor, aka Clem, he's sort of still in training to set off on the mission to destroy the guns, together with all the other rebellions. It's the first real rebellion that everyone's been sort of preparing for. Everyone's sort of holding on to the edge of their seat because it's about to happen. And it's, as I said at the start, it's like they're taking the time with it, and it's fine. I really don't mind it. Whenever you have like two characters sort of having a conversation, you can see someone else, you know, working in the background. It's like a self-sustainable camp that it's, again, very believable, and just attention to details. You know, if you see two characters talking, of course you're gonna see in the, you know, corner of your eyes some people just living their lives. Like, no one's very static. It's all very, very much in a movement. So even though we're not in the action, we're not fighting, we're not having this big battle, everything else still in the movement. It's a very interesting juxtaposition, and I think that's how they get away with it without being boring, essentially, and having go through series and character arc sort of unravel on the screen for the sake of continuity without actual purpose. Like, it works. Again, it works. And there's some trust issues, but yeah, again, the trust issues are sort of tested in a clever way. The most obvious way of showing that someone has some like trust issues to is essentially see someone observing someone from the distance. We don't see any of that. You know, Skeen is just being precautious, but in his way, like in his own way, in the way that fits his character when he snatches the crystal, you know, of Andor's neck. We don't see it coming at all because nothing gave us this clue that he's actually even being observed, that Skin even knows where the crystal is. It's just, it's logical. It's beautiful. I'm getting too excited right now. Okay. So, who's Vel? I have been dying to know where I know her face from. I have this thing, I always need to connect the dots. If not, I'm not gonna sleep at night. And I've been trying so hard to remember and to put the film or TV series in. Of course, she, we know her as from being Waif in Game of Thrones. You know, the one that like treated Maisie Williams' character, Arya so badly. I can sleep at night. So the script, it's just flying. You can also like feel the actors. They're not just delivering lines, they're performing everything they say with every inch of their muscle in their body, and any interactions is just pure gold. The script is well written. Yeah, we'll see the Empire, you know, corporate and climbing up the corporate ladder, and why not? And it's actually really nice to see white spaces in the Empire. You know, we used to the Death Star and the Star Destroyer, sort of dark ship, cold vibes, and dark versus evil. You know, we associate Siths and Empire with the dark color, but on the other hand, we have some of the officers surrounded with white walls and dressed in the white coats, capes, uniforms. It's adding something new, something exciting. Again, this line between good is good, evil is evil is, it moves, it sways, and yeah, it keeps things interesting, keeps things fresh. I like that. We get to see this really cool of the TIE fighter. I don't know how to explain this. We get to see a TIE fighter. So I know before you say, yeah, we've seen things like this before. We have seen a human against a TIE fighter, but it was in a hangar, right? We've never actually seen a TIE fighter fly next to people, and just to kind of show the proportion, the scale of the ship versus people, but also the speed of the TIE fighter. And yeah, I don't know, TIE fighters are really cool. I'm glad we got this little moment. Everyone hates Empire for different reasons. That's kind of like a recurring theme. Everyone hates the Empire, but it's no longer Empire is the big bad wolf. They're just trying to do their job, you know. They're given orders. That also got me thinking, why does it come as such a shock to us to see good acting in Star Wars or well-written script? Well, yeah, obviously, we haven't seen anything like this lately, and it's such a nice breath of fresh air finally to know that every character that you see on screen, it's someone that you can relate to, it's someone that you know, it's your uncle, it's your mother, it's your friend, it's your boyfriend, it's your girlfriend. Like, all these characters feel very real. It's like a real cherry on top when you have a well-written piece of character, but you also match the talent and magic happens, and that's what Andor delivers. And even though not much happened, yeah, I'm just very happy that we're finally not treated like idiots, that there's one series that actually appreciates the intelligence of its viewers, and such a pleasure to watch. Yeah, like and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and see you next week.
This week, we have a couple things that we've been building anticipation for. This marks the end of Halloween, because Halloween ends. It was just a year ago that we were talking about the last Halloween movie, and I admitted it then, I'll admit it now, I've never seen one of them. I can't imagine that this would be a good reason for me to go see this one, in which it's ending. But some of you horror people, you've been keeping up with these since the 80s, and you're gonna go ahead and see Jamie Lee Curtis fight him one more time. What do you think? True. Yeah, you gonna do it? You gonna see it?
Yeah. Oh, I'm a big Halloween fan. I've always, even like the crappy sequels, I think they're kind of enjoyable. Even like for some reason, the mask is always the most difficult thing for them to understand. I don't know why. You look at like Halloween, I think like 5 or something. Just there's just some terrible, terrible mask out there, and it's always so funny. But this started off as such like a fun franchise, and then when they brought it back in 2018, I thought it was such like a cool addition. I don't know if Halloween Kills was exactly necessary. I'm just gonna be totally honest. But I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna be totally honest. I'm gonna watch it. I might even bring my Michael Myers mask. I don't know how crazy I'm gonna get. We shall see.
To the theater? Will they let you do that?
Probably not,
Yeah, that's a bet. Yeah, I don't know.
but we will see.
Okay, well, give it a shot. Let us know how that goes. I'm gonna go ahead and say, probably not the best move, but we'll see.
Yeah.
What are you looking forward to with this? Because as you just said, you don't think that Halloween Kills needed to happen. So why should this one happen?
I think Halloween Kills kind of adds. I don't know if it's fair to say that, but it adds more and more tension to the already fighting tension between Michael Myers and Jamie Lee Curtis's character. And Halloween, it shows like what kind of effect it had and how it comes back. And then Halloween Kills just adds more and basically just drives the whole town crazy. And this is their way of saying goodbye to the character, saying goodbye to Jamie Lee's character, just to end it all and maybe do it in a blaze of glory. We'll see. I think we'll get some really fun moments out of this.
So do you think that, this ends Jamie Lee Curtis's involvement with the franchise, but do you think that that means that they're going to reinvent this? They're going to reboot it and start all the way back at the beginning?
I would not be surprised. I'm just going to be totally honest, just seeing how the movies go. I honestly wouldn't even be surprised if she comes back as like executive producer or something along those lines, still having kind of a touch, but it should be a way of her saying goodbye to the character. Because there's been a couple times like where they bring the character back, like famously age 20 years after the first Halloween. That was a big one. If they do this right, again, I haven't seen the movie. If they do this right, this will be a fun, a thrilling, kind of just like a rewarding experience to the audience who have seen this character through ups and downs and doing just terrible things and just driving a stake through its heart and just ending the whole thing,
Yeah. And I guess
right.
in the trailer, what they do is they hint at, if I die, maybe he dies too. Do you really think that Jason would die in this?
It's Michael, but
Michael, I'm sorry. That tells you what a fan of these I'm not.
You're absolutely
my mind's on
fine.
Jason and Freddy Krueger. They're all the
Yeah.
same to me.
I mean, there's always been the whole thing of, they're the same coin but different sides, whatever, that whole thing. And
Yeah.
I was talking to a friend of mine and talking about how they retconned the whole brother thing. That was a big thing in the original Halloween 2, was like, oh, he's actually here to like finish his bloodline off, finally like kill her. But it kind of makes it more terrifying to have this masked psycho who's just been haunting you for years and for no reason, kind of playing into the stalker aspect that's been showing ever since like the first movie.
Do you think, for someone like me who's never seen any of these, that like I could watch this one and still enjoy it?
I would love to say yes, because I love these movies, but no, absolutely not. I don't think there is a way for you to just watch like the last one. There's so much that happens. Now I'm not saying you need to watch all the movies or even the first Halloween, but I think it would be a good idea to at least have seen Halloween 2018.
Okay.
To start off.
That's
where
where
it kinda
they
gives you a
basically said that
situation.
all the sequels to the original didn't matter. This is the sequel to the original. That's kind of, they're just
Yeah.
totally, it was like Terminator. They've rebooted that franchise 5 times. This isn't
Yeah.
as bad, but I guarantee
Yeah.
you they're gonna reboot this thing, or like for some reason he's still not gonna be dead after the end of this movie, and he's gonna come back.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I
Maybe
guess
Lindsay
that-
Lohan will be in the next one. Like they were talking about how they would love to do a sequel together to Freaky Friday. Maybe it will be Freaky
Yeah.
Halloween Friday, and then Lindsay Lohan would be
knows?
Jamie Lee Curtis reborn. I don't know. I'm just throwing things out
It's
there.
an interesting franchise because it was never supposed to be like this. I don't, Andrew or Dan, I don't even know if you guys know the story, but how Halloween was always supposed to be as a series and as an anthology. You know, they would do one with Michael Myers, and then they were going to do one with Season with Witch, but they were like, actually, you know, we got a really good feedback with Michael Myers. Let's do one more. So they did Halloween 2, and then they were like, okay, we did that. That's done. Let's go on to the anthology. So they did Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, and which had nothing to do with Michael Myers whatsoever. And it got bad reviews because they really wanted Michael Myers. Mm-hmm. And then from there, John Carpenter just like left the series pretty much. And they just did all these really bad sequels, and they just kind of kept coming back, trying to find their footing. And I thought that they kind of had it with 2018, but I don't know, making a trilogy is always kind of weird.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Dan,
I don't know.
you got that face going on. What do you guys say?
Honestly, I feel like what you just described to me is the producers just, you know, saying, hey, this thing is making money, do more. Like, stick to your artistic integrity and follow through on creating something original. Because I think Halloween over the years has become the epitome of that horror franchise that refuses to go away. And because these things generally don't cost as much to make, it's not like a big risk for these studios and filmmakers to make, you know, like, all right, yeah, sure, drop another 25 million, it will probably make 50, so like we at least break even. And the break even point is so low that they're willing to do that. Whereas, you know, the reason why you can't do this kind of thing, I mean, with Terminator, they somehow managed to do it because, you know, even though those movies kept failing upwards, but you can't do this with like an Avatar kind of a film where you spend $500 million on marketing and production, and then the movie barely breaks even. You're much less likely to make a sequel. With horror movies, they can fall prey to that, where it's like the Conjuring universe. I mean, they still tend to make a decent amount of money, so maybe that's not a fair comparison. But yeah, I really do wish that, you know, that they kind of moved on and did something different. And maybe like what they're doing with James Bond now is rethinking the character for the next iteration. Give it a rest, come back to it in a few years. It doesn't have to be like 10 years, 3 to 5 years, and then do something totally new and different. Like, we don't need these characters back. Like, I think we've seen them enough.
I disagree when it comes to Bond. We will always need a James Bond.
No, I'm not saying. Well, I'm just saying the character's gonna be different. Well, to be fair though, every iteration of James Bond has been quite different, because James Bond has always been a reflection of the era that you see those movies come out in.
Yeah,
You
but
can't,
they haven't
Moonraker and
so
Skyfall
differently.
Have such a gap. Like for example,
Bond's always recognizable.
Yeah.
He always is Bond, and you can always feel that presence. What is the mythology of this? Like, what's the supernatural element? Is there a supernatural element to this?
The shape is what he is always referred to as. Michael Myers is supposed to be this just entity of nothing but evil. They refuse to even write him down as Michael Myers in the credits. Every time you look at a Halloween movie, it should say the shape. And that's how it was in the script.
Where does the name come from then?
It just comes from, like, I think a pitch meeting or something where John Carpenter was like, he is like in the shape of absolute evil, you know, just this hulking figure and something along those lines. But I
mean, like, why do people know the character as Michael Myers if it's just the shape?
Well, that is his name, and that like in the script they call him Michael Myers, and because that is his name. But like,
I mean, he's been dead
like
so many times. So
yeah, but
isn't that part of it? Like, because he keeps coming back after getting killed. Like, I don't know, every movie he seemingly does.
Yeah, literally, yeah, pretty much every movie.
Yeah.
But what I mean is, like, they refer to him as the shape is like, you know, when they have like the actual script and they have like the character name and then the dialogue and stuff like that. It's Well, he never has any lines of dialogue, but it's in the action. It says the shape, goes to the bed frame and that kind of stuff like that. It's supposed to be originally it was always being like, technically he's human, but it never seems that way. It seems like there's nothing that can kill him. And that was always what was so scary about it. But I think we're kind of getting to a point of like, you got to kill this guy, or why should we even root for the hero in the first place?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
The son of the shape.
Sorry, I've been talking so much about this.
That's okay.
story.
No,
Sorry. I just wanna apologize.
I'm trying to find a way into seeing this so that I can actually speak intelligently about it next week. Because up to this point, I have failed. But it's.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that's not the only thing we're gonna be watching next week. There's something else there on the second line.
I'm not watching that. I'm not doing it.
You could find your way into watching the She-Hulk finale.
I really don't want to. That literally made my skin crawl. The suggestion of me watching that show. I can't. I won't. It's not going to happen. But maybe you will. Maybe you watching this will watch She-Hulk and Halloween Ends. I'm going to see what I can do to try and find a way into Halloween Ends. I'm going to leave She-Hulk to you people. And yeah, in the meantime, stay in touch. We're on Instagram and Twitter and Twitch and YouTube and ohsocurious.com. So follow us, subscribe, be part of the conversation. We love when people engage with us. If you think we're obnoxious, if you think we're funny, if you like the tributes that we do to celebrities who have since passed, this is a channel with a lot of content for you, and we're always pushing out more. So enjoy that. We make it for you. Till next time, we'll see you. Have a good week. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.